Hey guys, it's Don't Hurt Me, I'm Spooked, and welcome back to my Steven Universe review series. Today's episode is Gem Trail. In this episode I'll be able to talk more about because most of it wasn't leaked, and more story-wise, plot came out of it. So this episode starts off straight where we were last episode, with Steven waking up and getting into the drill with Peridot. They drill down for a while listening to some music, then the gem mutants start trying to break into the ship. They then make it down to where the cluster is stored and start trying to drill into it. Steven then starts to get stressed out and hallucinates, which makes his gem glow and makes him use his ability of going into other gems' minds. He then awakes in the cluster's mind, and the gems inside the cluster tell him they don't want to form but are being forced to as they are in pain and cannot find each other's gems. Steven then explains to them how they have each other and they start to bubble each other as Steven wakes up. Then they head back to the surface where Garnet, Amethyst and Pearl arrive back from the Watermelon Island. Garnet has Lapis and tells Steven that she is alright and they all celebrate. The episode leaves off with the cluster being completely bubbled. Now it's time for my thoughts on the episode. I thought this episode was pretty cool, but there was one major thing that was negative about this episode. It was the way they stole the cluster just so anticlimactically, just like Jasper's death. Well, not really death, but you know what I'm saying. They just bubbled the cluster like nothing climactic happened. It was about to happen and then they just bubbled it. Honestly, I'd like to have seen more action with the cluster rather than just Steven going down like, yo, you can be bubbled, and then bubbling them all, because it was really anticlimactic. This was something that was leading up to it. Everyone knew about the cluster, but now it's just randomly postponed until like later on, or now that Steven's friends with the cluster's probably not going to happen, and they're going to have to send gems from outer space. But I love the spooky vibe in this episode. The gem mutants, of course, were spooky, but I think the thing that was the most spooky in this episode was the distortion of like the faces appearing and the cluster just being small whispers to a loud shouting voice of like billions of gems. That's what I think was the most eerie thing about this episode, and I love seeing horror episodes in the show. As I said in the previous one, we know the show is going into a more serious tone, and I'd love to see more horrible episodes like this. Well, horrific, not horrible, but you know what I'm saying. We've got some light-hearted episodes coming up, so we'll be resuming back to those, but I really like the horror episodes as they just come straight out of nowhere. I also love the last word scene between Steven and Peridot. It was really cute and stuff, and it makes me want to ship Stevedot more, but you know, everyone knows Lapidot is the main shipping, seeing as now Jasper's dead. You can't ship Jasper and Peridot, or Jasper or Lapis. It's Lapidot. Lapidot for the win 2016. But I also love how we learn more about the clusters and gems and stuff as they've lost their minds from being split apart and being cracked gems. All they want to do is find their parts, as Peridot has said in the episode, and it gives us more explanation into why the gem mutants are insane and they attack whatever's in front of them. Steven, of course, as ever, was worried about the gems outside the drill and wanted to save them, but he couldn't because, you know, he'd probably die himself from burning. Even though gems are pretty much mutant to that, he'll probably just die because he's half human, and last time I checked, humans can't survive in lava. Although the ending was anticlimactic, I love the climax as Peridot and Steven drilled into the cluster. We didn't know what was going on, and all we knew is that like the cluster could just emerge any second and kill both of them, but I think most people could predict that they weren't going to die because, you know, the leaks we've got, and secondly, that's kind of even more anticlimactic way for this show to just randomly end on that. But overall, I really like this episode. It's not my favourite, as I've said before, with Super Watermelon Island. These two episodes were decent, but kind of disappointing in my opinion. Maybe it's just because of the leaks and stuff, but I have to give this episode an 8.5 out of 10. I felt it was a little bit better than the last episode due to more, of course, lines and speaking roles in this, and we learn more rather than the last episode being just Alexandrite and Malachite yelling at each other and the watermelons miming each other. But that's just my opinion on those two episodes, or this episode. You can go watch my other one about the Super Watermelon Island. And yeah, I will see you guys next week for when the new episode comes out. I believe it is Barnmates. I'm not sure. See you guys next time.
Presented by
Baba Booey.
Pizzeria Productions.